lifts in this very watershed have been there since the 30s, starting with Brighton, and our water quality has maintained, and I think Laura would agree, there's been times of improvement because of some of the other work that has been done. And frankly, under the guidance of the Salt Lake City Public Utilities, the Forest Service, and others. So there absolutely is a way to do it and not adversely impact water quality, and it has to be a requirement. Quickly on the federal legislation, as we've stated before, the concept was, we started with the Forest Service, by the way, in conversations. And while we never made application to the Forest Service, we did have conversations in an effort to understand how they may view the project. We felt that the best way to make any application, to give ourselves a venue, if you will, to propose the project, was to go through Congress. And all that happens if we prevail at the federal level, as Laura alluded to, it comes back then to local government and local citizens entirely. So there is one agency that would be somewhat removed from the process, and that is the federal government or the Forest Service. It does not remove NEPA, National Environmental Policy Act, the requirements of NEPA, but it does put the approval process squarely in the hands of all of you, Summit County, Salt Lake County, Salt Lake City Public Utilities, and we think that's a reasonable place to put the project. So I'll jump off at that point, and I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to clarify some of that. Anything that may happen in the future rides on the back of SkiLink. I've said publicly many times, we have absolutely no interest in any development in adjacent, near, in proximity to this corridor to develop the lift. So I don't know how to answer it any differently. Certainly, those opposed to it enjoy suggesting that, the next thing we will build is a Walmart. It just simply isn't true, and it's a stretch to suggest that would happen.
Colorado has over 14 million skier visits per year. Utah is roughly about 4 million. I think Tahoe's a lot more than we are. How can we, Utah, how will this project and others interconnect give us that competitive advantage? Second part of that question is for Laura. There's talk about this one SkiLink, this one gondola that's roughly 2 miles long, will impact the watershed. Is it possible that a SkiLink or this lift can be constructed using best management practices to not affect the watershed? Second part, I'd like Mike Goar to answer in relation to water quality. Will SkiLink build more access roads? Will this create more development right there? And then also on top of that, I want to know.
Okay, that's not.
Sorry, it's a long. One last question.
You can take on the competition. You can take on the water. How about that?
One thing, maybe I can start off the water question too, is we've built numerous lifts in Big Cottonwood, both Brighton and Solitude, obviously in Little Cottonwood. We actually replaced an entire bridge in Big Cottonwood Creek this summer, took out the old bridge. There's a tremendous amount of construction infrastructure that's in Big Cottonwood already that has been ongoing, new construction, old construction, all of which has no long-term effect to the watershed. And over the past 20 years, we've seen a noticeable increase in the quality of water from all those good management practices. So I truly believe that we can construct in Big Cottonwood a lift in this area without a degradation to the watershed in any way. It's been done around the world. at a lot of other sensitive areas, UNESCO sites. The Dunkelmeyer has built specifically lifts in these areas very successfully to world acclaim. And I think that Laura would probably agree with the success that we've had in Big Cottonwood Canyon of keeping the water quality high. And obviously, early on, it was my intent. And obviously, we're there for a long time to be able to keep it that way.
So I'll address the water quality, and then I think you had a question on competition. So I think, yes, to answer your question, you can actually construct a chairlift or other types of development, use best management practices, and the actual construction and existence of that piece of infrastructure may have a de minimis impact. It's not going to have a zero impact, but it may have a de minimis impact on the watershed. But that's not the point that we are making. The point that we are making is that this particular lift is designed to encourage a massive amount of growth. And with growth in the watershed, we have a lot of other impacts that aren't related to the construction of just a single lift. And those include impacts to the existing infrastructure. A question came up earlier about public safety. How are you going to get those people, ingress and egress, how are you going to get those people off the lift? Well, maybe now it's a lift, but then, we're going to realize, well, we better put some access roads in so that we can keep people safe, for instance. And I don't know that that's a plan, but usually that's a practice in the ski resorts too. And so, and also I agree with Dave about the improvements that were made with the sewer line and the implementation of best practices. However, at some point we come to a capacity limit. And if we're talking about a whole bunch of growth between SkiLink and then all of the other proposals that are out there related to the ski resorts and other development issues in our watershed, we're actually we need to capture that cumulative impact, because that is going to have a detrimental impact on water quality and the functionality of our watersheds, not to mention the supply available to the downstream users.
I think one of the things that really helps for discussion is all of us on this panel are involved in a lot of different studies from a governmental, intergovernmental relationship in terms of trying to plan for future growth, and that involves government planning and obviously government money to be able to create transportation systems that I think all of us, probably all of us in this room, are looking towards almost immediately in the future, in that 20-year time frame, to have a carless road system that we can electrically transport people to and from the places they want to go. It's a vision that I think all of us probably have, and that's something we work towards. And even though this lift isn't proposed as a complete transportation system, but we may have aerial railways that allow us to be able to transport those people electrically, without pollutants, without roads, without cars. I think as Laura would tell you, within the Wasatch canyons and the watershed, the biggest point source pollutants are obviously people, campgrounds, parking lots, restroom facilities. Dispersed recreation users are part of that. There's no facilities for some of that needs to be addressed. And that's something that we work together with the city. We're not enemies on this, on any of these issues when it comes to the watershed. As far as growth, I think Laura answered that. She's hoping that it will grow because it's SkiLink, I think.
Carl, it's just really quick. Carl.
You know what? Hey, wait. We're going to stop right there. You got your chance. We've got, you're going to answer about the competition. We've got a long line here. It's past 8:30. To honor our time commitment of wrapping things up by 9 o'clock, 3-minute answers. We need shorter answers, perhaps, shorter questions. Mike, you can take on the issue of the competition. How was that?
I think it was answered. Let me just say briefly that that was certainly an important part of the SkiLink concept, is to deal with a competitive advantage that we believe we can create, importantly, to differentiate Utah ski industry from other ski states and regions in North America.
And I just want to say that, you know, the 14 million visits in Colorado and 4 million visits here, the question that needs to be going through all of our heads and the question that needs answered is, are 14 million skier visits sustainable for this resource, given what it provides to our communities?